Coming up today, could the cancellation of a goodwill pop concert signal bigger problems between North Korea and China? We take a closer look at the growing mystery. Ahn Cheol-soo, one of the co-founders of South Korea's main opposition party, calls it quits as the power struggle within the liberal camp deepens. Plus, the world has an ambitious new climate deal following talks in Paris. But how is it going to affect Korea's heavy industries? Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello and welcome. It's 6 a.m. on Monday, December 14th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you're tuned in to our early morning edition of Arirang News. Our top story this morning. The strength of China and North Korea relations is being called into question after Pyongyang abruptly pulled the plug on a concert by its all-female pop group Moranbong Band. For a closer look at this story and the potential implications for the future of Pyongyang-Beijing ties, Connie Kim reports.
Did China's decision to send low-level officials to a North Korean band concert in Beijing lead to the abrupt event cancellation just hours before the band was scheduled to take stage? That seems to be the case. Citing a Chinese official, a source in China told Seoul-based Yonhap news agency on Sunday, Beijing decided to send vice ministerial-level officials to the event instead of a higher-ranking party leader following Pyongyang's claim to have developed the hydrogen bomb. North Korea had originally asked that China send President Xi Jinping or Premier Li Keqiang to the concert, but China declined, proposing instead to send one of its 25 highest-ranking officials. Pyongyang agreed. But the source said things took a sudden turn on Thursday when the North Korean leader announced the regime had developed a hydrogen bomb, also the day North Korea's pop sensation Moranbong Band arrived in Beijing. China's state-run news agency Xinhua released a vague statement on Saturday, saying communications regarding work-related issues were to blame. But none of that has dispelled speculation about why the Moranbong Band's first concert overseas was called off on short notice. A source familiar with North Korea told Yonhap it's because Pyongyang has declared a period of mourning for its late leader Kim Jong-il, during which singing and dancing are banned. Whatever the reason may be, experts say it seems that North Korea's relations with its longtime ally have been dented, as the performances were aimed at improving Sino-North Korean relations. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, North Korea is banning South Korea for its failure of a recent round of high-level bilateral talks. Pyongyang's main propaganda website says Seoul had ruined the talks and the mood for improving bilateral relations by slandering Pyongyang. It also slammed President Park Geun-hye for raising the North's nuclear program and human rights record in her speech to the UNESCO headquarters in Paris earlier this month. Shortly after the inter-Korean talks ended on Saturday evening, the North state-run Korean Central News Agency blamed Seoul for the breakdown of the talks, saying the South had declined to discuss fundamental issues such as the resumption of a long-stalled tour program to the North's Mount Kumgang resort. The two sides ended their first high-level talks in 8 years without an agreement on when they'd meet again. The co-founder of South Korea's main opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy, has left the party, ending weeks of bickering between him and the party's leader, Moon Jae-in. Ahn Cheol-soo says he can no longer be part of the NPAD, citing Moon's refusal to agree to some much-needed reforms. Kwon Jang-ho has this report.
At a news conference on Sunday morning, Ahn Cheol-soo announced that he is leaving his party, the New Politics Alliance for Democracy, which he co-founded just 21 months ago.
I failed the party and the people hoping to remake the NPAD into a party the public can trust and rely on.
After a disastrous by-election for the party in July last year, Ahn gave up his seat as party co-chair, but since then has had bitter disagreements with Moon Jae-in, the current party leader. After that, the NPAD failed to build momentum, suffering another defeat in by-elections in April. Since then, Ahn has been calling for Moon to resign and for further reforms to the party. But Moon has argued the changes would be ill-timed.
The party is more concerned in protecting its vested interest. There's been talk of reform, but in reality, they're afraid of reform.
Moon is said to have met with Ahn late on Saturday evening, but was unable to change his mind. Ahn started his professional life as a physician before becoming a successful businessman and the founder of Korea's leading antivirus software company, Anlab. He entered politics in 2011, first running unsuccessfully for Seoul City Mayor and then for the presidency in 2012. Running as an independent, he was seen as a new hope for Korean voters who were sick of traditional party politics. Although his numbers were impressive and at times higher than those of Moon Jae-in, the main opposition party leader at the time, Ahn dropped out of the race and gave his support to Moon in an effort to try and defeat Park Geun-hye and the ruling's Henry Party. He then left for the United States, but returned a year later to found the current opposition party. Ahn has promised that he will fight on, but he has not yet revealed whether he will create a new political party or join a different one. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea, China and Japan are gearing up for another round of negotiations on their trilateral trade deal. According to Korea's Trade Ministry, the three-way meeting will be held for 2 days in Hakone, Japan, starting on this Monday. This will be the 9th round of tripartite talks since discussions began in November 2012. The topics on the agenda include technical barriers to trade, rules for online transactions and sanitary measures. Korea's exports are set to grow at a slower pace than the global average for a second year in a row. According to the Seoul-based Korea Development Institute on Sunday, Korea's exports growth in terms of volume is expected to remain unchanged from last year at 2.3%, and that is far lower than the IMF's projected 3.2% gain. Now, analysts pointed out the driving force behind the trend, namely intensifying competition with China in areas like steel, chemicals and IT, which have served as major players in Korea's exports in recent years. The think tank's projection for next year is not that much better either. It says Korea's exports will grow just 1.8% on year, while the IMF expects a 4.1% rise in global trade. Now, this is a worrisome trend considering Korea recorded export growth rates lower than the global average only 2 times, 2001, 2014, in the last 15 years. Korea's steel and petrochemicals industries are worried about losing their competitive edge following the landmark climate agreement struck in Paris over the weekend. A steel industry insider told news outlets in Korea on Sunday that there are concerns Korea could lose competitiveness if companies have to purchase carbon credits, especially when Korean products are facing competition from lower-priced goods from China. In addition, the Federation of Korean Industries said it would be difficult for the Korean steel and petrochemical industries to cut emissions any further, given that its energy efficiency levels are already among the highest in the world. Now, the Paris deal aims to curb global warming to less than 2 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. Around 190 countries took part in the tense negotiations over 2 weeks, striking the first deal to commit all nations to cut emissions. Now, global financial watchers are paying close attention to China's latest indication that it will measure the level of the yuan against a basket of currencies rather than just the US dollar. The People's Bank of China said on its website that it would make sense for the yuan to be valued against a basket of currencies rather than the greenback alone. The Wall Street Journal forecasts the move would make the yuan a global currency with a value determined more in line with other major currencies and a step out of the US dollar's shadow as the world's de facto currency. However, it also pointed out that it is not clear whether or when China would move away from the greenback in favour of the currency basket, as it has made similar intentions known in the past. Now, the US military's largest relocation project to date is moving closer to completion. When finished, the US 8th Army will move from its current base in central Seoul to Pyeongtaek, which is a town around 70 kilometers southeast of the South Korean capital. Our Kim Hyun-bin recently made a visit to the base and he filed this report.
The massive Camp Humphreys expansion project is near completion, with plans for most of the U.S. forces in Korea to be stationed there by 2017. The Humphrey base is 86% complete. When ready next year, it will station some 27,000 U.S. troops. The $10.7 billion relocation project has been called the largest ever for the U.S. military.
Today you can actually witness the ongoing efforts and progress at United States Army Garrison Humphreys as we continue with constructing hundreds of new buildings and adding more than 2,000 acres to this installation.
The U.S. 8th Army headquarters in Korea is currently dispersed along the demilitarized zone, exposed to immediate threats from the north. U.S. Forces Korea Base Realignment Office Director Kim Gi-soo said that there will be no problem in countering threats from Pyongyang, even though the base is 70 kilometers south of Seoul.
There is a harbor, train station, and the Osan Air Base within a 20-kilometer proximity to the base. Also during crises, we will use the newly built railway and roads to send our troops north to the border.
Patriot missile defense batteries will be implemented in the camps to counter any missile attacks from the north, while some residual forces will remain stationed north of Seoul temporarily, along with a downsized command at Yongsan Base in Seoul. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News, Pyeongtaek.
Now, in international news, Russia has called the presence of Turkish troops in northern Iraq an unlawful incursion. Russian officials say Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov spoke with his Iraqi counterpart by phone and expressed Russia's firm support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Iraq. Early this month, around 150 Turkish troops, backed by tanks and artillery, rolled across the Iraqi border and took up positions near the city of Mosul, which has been held since last year by the Islamic State group. Iraq says Turkey deployed its forces without its permission. Turkey, however, insists its troops are there to protect trainers working with Kurdish forces at the site. Baghdad last week appealed to the UN Security Council to demand the immediate and unconditional withdrawal of all Turkish troops from the northern part of the country. And Russia says one of its warships has been forced to fire warning shots at a Turkish vessel in the Aegean Sea to avoid a collision. Moscow's defense ministry says a Turkish military attaché was summoned over the incident involving a Russian destroyer. Russia's Interfax news agency reports that the Turkish vessel had failed to respond to earlier warnings, but quickly changed course after shots were fired before passing within a few hundred meters of the Russian warship. Tensions are high after Turkey shot down a Russian warplane near the Syrian border last month. Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered tough economic sanctions in retaliation for that incident. India and Japan have signed a nuclear cooperation agreement after a three-day bilateral summit in New Delhi, where India's Prime Minister met with his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe. The MOU enables Japan to export technology and equipment related to nuclear power plants to India. However, it also says Japan would suspend cooperation if India conducted nuclear tests. Another part of the deal clears the way for Japan to build a bullet train system for a major high-speed rail project being planned in India. The project will connect Mumbai with a city in western India and is estimated to cost $12 billion. Now, a US media report has found fault with the US immigration screening process, saying the recent terror attack in Southern California could have been prevented. The New York Times reported Sunday that Tashfeen Malik, who, with her husband, carried out the massacre in San Bernardino earlier this month, passed 3 background checks as she moved to the US from Pakistan. The report pointed out how at no point did officials notice that Malik had talked openly on social media about how she supported jihad and she wanted to be a part of it. Law enforcement officials, however, say it's almost impossible to conduct an investigation and scour the social media accounts of tens of millions of people who enter the US each and every year. Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for watching. If you're watching us in Seoul, please pack an umbrella because we might see some rain later today. But we do hope your week gets off to a bright start. Goodbye.